another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are sorry for the slight late start. We are going this day to be talking about the regional elections, creating tensions and cracks, not across political parties, because definitely the CPDM is running for these elections across the nation. We are going to be looking at what is happening in Fako division with respect to the delegates that are supposed to represent the division at the level of the Southwest Chiefs Conference, with information coming in from Fako indicating that chiefs met to select their representatives for the Tiko and Limbe and Naboya respectively, with the senior divisional officer deciding otherwise. What is actually happening in Fako division? We equally are going to be talking about Kmer division with Kumba in focus with respect to the position of the city mayor, with the decision by Cameroon's Supreme Court ordering for a rerun for that position. If time permits, we are going to be discussing Bamenda City Council, with the city mayor deciding to put into use a bus shuttle service to save the inhabitants of Bamenda City. We are going to be discussing on this with the panelists who are already in the house. Judge Mr. Mofo is in the house with us to discuss on these three topics. Good evening, Judge Mofo.
Thank you, Kum, and thanks also for welcoming me. Hello to the other panelists and to your viewers out there.
Just to indicate that this battery of lawyers, a collective of lawyers for Chief Ndike Richard Kombi and Chief Isombe David Manyure, we are going to be listening to these lawyers to find out why they are deciding to head to the court with the senior divisional officer for Fako, Emmanuel Ingambaludu. We are going to be listening to them in the course of this program. We equally are going to be discussing with Tamai Jarvis. Good evening.
Good evening, Leonard. Good evening to all those who are watching us right now. Good evening, Cameroon. Good evening to the peace-loving people of Moya.
We equally are in the company of Prince Joel, who is a journalist and a regular panelist with us out here in our studios at Feng Budrombange in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Good evening, Prince Joel.
Thank you very much, Leonard. Good evening to all those who are watching. It's always a privilege to be in the house. Special good evening to those who are watching in Fako, and especially to the head of department for journalism and mass communication, Dr. Kingsley Yongalanga.
We equally are in the company of, they call him the kangaroo man. Fa Evistayong is in the house. He is the Deputy Secretary for Communication for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. Good evening and welcome, Fa.
Thanks very much, Kumleon. Thanks very much for also welcoming me too, and greetings to all the level-headed panelists who are here. Special greetings to the president of the party and the allies, including the President Benda Ekoka and a host of others, and also greetings to the family of those who are currently being incarcerated into the various dungeons or the various prisons, detention centers within the country.
If the last permits, we equally are going to be connecting with Tiku Felix from Boyaka, the Southwest Regional Capital, to also throw light on our topics for tonight. And we'll start by reading portions of this collective of lawyers for Chief Ndike Richard Kombi and Chief Isombe David Manyore. It reads, we the collective of lawyers Ibantoko Justice and Kea, Emmanuel and Njisik Stephen Njila for Chief Ndike Richard Kombi, and of Mondo Nitiku and Chief Isombe David Nanyue of Bonadiko Marwan, having meticulously examined the relevant provisions of law number 2019/005 of 25th April 2019 to amend and supplement law number 2012/001 of 19 April 2012 relating to the electoral code and recommendations of the major national dialogue. Believing in the they say that they are not very happy with the senior divisional officer for handling the situation of their client, and Before we discuss, I don't know whether we should take a listen to why they are heading to the court. Eli, can we take a listen to the lawyers?
And you would understand that we're in a state of rule of law, and when a person feels aggrieved by an act of another, the required procedure is to go to court and seek legal clarity or seek answers to those issues. And that is what we are doing. We think that in the present situation, the actions of the SG, as we see in the press statement itself, constitutes gross interference with the electoral process. In fact, it's electoral fraud, according to our own estimation. And we believe that the law previews what happens in cases of electoral fraud, and that is what we are going to do. First, we seek to challenge and reverse the list that have been submitted. We're going to contest it so that the authentic list, as initially previewed by the Fako Chiefs Conference, is submitted at the level of election. And secondly, to ensure that all those who are responsible in this process, this electoral fraud, are held accountable. I think that's what we expect.
Barrister, you are talking about electoral fraud when the elections are yet to take place. I don't understand.
If you look at the law, the elections does not take place only on the day of voting. It is a process. It starts with registration, publication, and then the voting itself. So the voting itself is just the last stage of the election. But the key is the entry process. How and when the electoral college is summoned, how people register is very crucial. That, in fact, that's the most important thing. Because if you don't register, you cannot vote. And in this case, we are saying that people who ought to be on the list to be elected have been disenfranchised.
For Limbe, for whatever reason, you got a document we invited. Inside that meeting, it caused disorder because these children, they don't select their persons who they will represent their traditional house. They sign all the papers. We get the documents. Suddenly, the names of the sign them, they will change them. They not only change them, they confiscate the actual list, then they send different lists, names of different persons. Then ACO again, he take the document and keep them. He keep the document for our own clients then. Chimtike and Chifesome. He keep us so the time can pass. He know very well say he hide them. Let time can pass where the time when they get to go deposit them for a late so that they will be within time. It pass until the bill go force for take that document for SDO. When the talk say this attitude not correct. First, because SDO do not get no hand for this election. The law say now free, now the people they select the people for represent them. So who's I come out for inside for the matter? That's why we don't vex. We say no, we need clearance. And we plan say after all we already send the document, make a reply as law talk, pre-litigation notice, we go court. And for court, we reclaim damages. For a later on also reclaim about 100 million. It's small self. With the hardship where they don't cause them, we need to hire 3 big lawyers like this to follow this matter. But it's small, you know.
Some question, and thank you for that. We have to start by saying that this is state of law, and we as lawyers will fight against jungle justice. That's why we're doing everything possible to follow the procedure as provided by the laws. And behold, we've already lodged a pre-litigation complaint as required by the law organizing the functioning of the administrative courts. We expect the concern to respond, failure to which we're going to take the necessary actions that are necessary to call into order. Because we know as a fact that SDOs and DOs are not supposed to be, they're not supposed to meddle into the selection process. And that is what we're condemning. First, these are people whose population is not up to that of Chindike and the others. They are not even residents in their jurisdiction. In terms of language, some of them cannot even speak English. It's so provocative. And these are some of the causes of this crisis that we have in Cameroon today. Because you take somebody who cannot even express himself in English, right? It's coming to head, and to represent Anglophones. These are things we must condemn. We must condemn. We have a lot to unveil.
In the best case, why did he summon the chiefs? And then he summoned them. Why did he collect the files, the composed files of these presidential candidates? Why did he withhold them beyond, and only restituted them after the deadline?
The pressure from the bailiff.
Following repeated pressure from. So you see that the whole thing was calculated towards achieving a very parochial.
Okay, those were the explanations as to why these lawyers are defending their client, Chief Dike of Mondoni and Esombe, David Nanyu, were also noting that the Boya chiefs endorsed the chief of Great Support, His Royal Majesty Tina Monono, who is going unchallenged there. Can we understand what is happening? Is this a clear sign of meddling in the affairs of the leaders? Do you think that what the formula that was chosen by these chiefs, that is, they come together, select their leaders to represent them, was the best?
Yeah, I think again here we are seeing the maxim that we always say, all habits die hard. And this is a manifestation of they say that government should be of laws rather than of men. But here in this case, we are seeing government of men instead of the law. I think here again we are also seeing the resurgence of a certain class of persons who are now asserting their professional status, especially playing the role to interpret the law as it is, not as it ought to be. And in this particular case, I am happy because for once we have persons who have sworn to actually ensure that the law is actually executed as it is. The role of administrators are there to interpret and ensure that as objective facilitators, the laws as promulgated in the National Assembly is seen or communicated to the people, just facilitating the process, but not to give the impression that they are at the point of also manipulating those very laws. And you see again, unfortunately, the person who is actually being accused here, who is the administrator, he didn't learn the lesson from what happened after the local elections that happened in Kumba, where his colleague also had to interfere in the electioneering process. And today we see what is happening, that the state is going to spend money again to reorganize an election. Thank God this one is being arrested at the point of when the process is still on. So I just hope that the people who have the challenge or who are seeking for redress will have their measure as the law will take its course.
Yes, how do we explain what is happening in Fako division?
I think we must be realistic here. There is normative. What ought to be is not what is. I think it has to do with party politics, and some people want to be more Roman Catholic than the Pope. Because if you look at what is happening in Fako division, it tells you that the senior divisional officer may have his own influence within the party hierarchy, and the party tells you that he's the only person that may call their shot, and he's being used now, or could be used now in terms of selecting or having a candidate. Because what will you explain that the law gives a provision for the chiefs to select seat among themselves and vote their representative and say, okay, these are the people who want to represent us. At the end of the day, the list was sent now to the quarters that be the list is confiscated, and the day for registration bypasses, or the deadline bypasses. That's when they notice that other lists have been sent. I think it is time good enough for us to see that laws are not just respected, but laws are looked into the aspect that fits the objective of the nation to be one and indivisible. And if you go by the context in which the SDO took that decision, it's not just the first decision of the SDO. We've seen that in Kumba. We've seen how just a signature of the SDO distorted a whole legitimate process just with the signature, and we are seeing that it's happening in other divisions. And you see what happened in far north, where a DO wanted a class chief, and it became a point in time where he went in for voting, that okay, they should vote. And the entire process, they ended up not voting because the people from that village stood up and said, we cannot vote a chief. It's not customary. You don't vote a chief like you do for someone who is going in for an elected office. So we've seen this infringement. The problem is that people don't want to respect the law of decentralization. And if we are saying that we want effective decentralization, we must go by respecting that laws of effective decentralization. This is decentralization we are talking about, but we don't see it applying. We see infringement and officials wanting to still impose.
But you're talking of party politics. We are talking about traditional rulers. It is true that when we are going to come to the CPDM party, we'll see party. But here we are talking about traditional rulers and the administrative officials.
You and I will bear me witness that it's difficult sometimes to separate government offices from the parties. And sometimes when you see party rallies, you see some of these officials, they actively take part in this rally more than someone who is not an official, who is not a state official. Normally that position is supposed to be apolitical and non-partisan, meaning that position is just there to serve the interests of whichever party applies to go in for. But you see the way in which the party politics has gone in Cameroon in such a way that if you are an official, sometimes you feel like the only way to stay on that seat is to pay allegiance to party, is to show that you are working, is to show that you belong to this party, show that you are contributing to this party. So the party politics is what is destroying effective decentralization, because people want to pay allegiance to more the political party ideology than the interests of the people. I think this is an example. When the 2018 presidential election was ongoing, we could see how mobilization came in. Mobilization from the various state officials mobilizing people to vote. And at the end of the day, these are officials who are not supposed to be involved in any political party. The same thing with the chiefs. The chiefs are politicians because some of them belong to that same party. And now it's a clash of interest within the party. It's not a clash of say, a neutral body, a neutral chief wanting to go in for. That's why you see, when I'm talking about party politics, I'm saying that there is an ideology that the SDO have. And that may be coming because he has an influence from a top hierarchy party man. And that they say, okay, this man may not represent our party well in this house. This man may not represent our party well in this house. So who comes now to call the show? The SDO comes in to fill that gap.
Now, do we see a situation where the chiefs, who are custodians of the land and tradition, are going to be answering to a decision from an administrative official?
Sure, Mr. Liu. The thing is, what is happening in Boya is just one of the so many lapses, administrative lapses in Cameroon. Because a traditional ruler, that's why I'm 85 bit with Jarvis, a traditional ruler to a greater extent is not a politician. And we're talking about people who are supposed to represent the nation, because there's House of Chiefs that is coming. Now, if the people decide that this is the person we want, and the divisional officer, who should be like a referee, he's supposed to stay neutral in the whole game. But we see him manipulating, because when I listened to that lawyer, he said that they gave the file and he deliberately kept the file so the time goes off. It means that you will see that it is something that was done intentionally to prevent the people or the person that the people actually want. And this is what keeps going every day in our country, Mr. Leo, because most of the mayors we have, most of the parliamentarians, is it actually the people's choice? That's the question. No. A majority of them, like he was calling party politics, is true. A majority of these persons we have today as parliamentarians, as municipal councillors, who some later became mayors, come from the party. Once Yaoundé, there's what they call the party policy. Once Yaoundé gives a list, it is that list that it's imposed on the people at the grassroots. Which I think to an extent that what is happening in Boya today, and I believe that the authorities that are listening to us, it is time they discover that you do not force the people. We are talking about a traditional ruler who is the people's choice. He is the one that's going to represent the people. And when you pick somebody who is not the people's choice, there are two things that will come out. One, that person, since he's handpicked, the person is going to sing praises to the person who kept him there. And as such, he's no longer going to deliver the goals. He's no longer going to be objective. He's no longer going to do what the people actually want. And I feel that, Mr. Leo, that the SDO, who meddled in this affair, which he was not supposed to do so, because he's neither a member of elections, Cameroon, Elecam, I don't know why he came into the board game. He was supposed to stay neutral. And I believe that it is still not late. If elections could be cancelled in areas like in Kumba, it is still not late for the hands of the clock to be turned. Because the people, from what I've listened to the different lawyers and from the information we have from the ground, it shows that the people actually want this chief. But apparently, the GO, who maybe is receiving instructions from somebody that I cannot confirm, is struggling to play a smart one on these traditional rulers. Those who are listening want to say that what has happened to the chief is injustice, because he is a person that the people actually want, but we see the GO or the SDO coming in to play a very funny one that is not selling his image well, because if those out of Cameroon or those out of Boya hear that an SDO manipulates a list genuinely chosen by the people, it tells you that he is just one of the so many duos that are carrying on what is ongoing in the country, Cameroon.
Okay, yeah.
One of the things that we have to be clear is that the chiefs or the people we are referring here in the electoral college where the chiefs were elected by their peers. So it was not the population that actually
the chiefs decided that
the chief amongst them. And if you listen to the lawyers, it is based on the fact that they are clients of the chief, based on the fact that they are the aggrieved party. So there are two colleges in this regional election. There is the indirect, which is the councillors who are supposed to vote the 70, and then amongst the chief also, who are supposed to end up electing their own house of chiefs made up amongst themselves to form now the regional councils in the southwest.
Okay, now can this also be a pointer as to how the house of chiefs may function? Indicating that administrators, administrative officials are going to be telling the House of Chiefs how to go about their business?
That is a very good question. It will be as you have said. You are asking a question, good. It will be just as you have said. I have said everything is kangaroo inclined. From the beginning, we said that the terms governing regional council was not made clear. We spoke here and spoke, people thought we were blowing grammar. These are the indicators. The decision will not be different from National Assembly, not be different from the Senate. It will be to sit, clap, and some other persons come and supervise what you're doing. We are just babbling for time. And that's why I said that I stood there sometime on this platform, I remember some months ago, when I was advocating for the right of chiefs in the Southwest region. That is my traditional rulers, our traditional rulers. At the point that when they were even doing automatic to most match with placards, I'm sure they thought I had taken weed. After fighting for them, I begin to ask the question, how did it even come that you take your file and give to an SDO who is not part of the electoral process before complaining?
That's the question.
You see why I say that everything has been put in a kind of state whereby things are supposed to be done out of the normal political milieu, now takes political milieu. Even when you want to go to ease yourself, it's politics you are playing. It doesn't function like that. Our chiefs will accept that they err. If you have lawyers, you are in a meeting, and the agent tells you give me the files. Hold your phone. Phones are present. Call your lawyer. And we are here with the file. The agent said we should give him the file. Do we give him? Your lawyer also tell you because he's a lead counsel who understands electoral law. And you hold it. But because many of them have many things in common with the chiefs, with the SDO, land issues we're talking about here, chiefs and SDO and authorities were inside the racket. So because of these many things in common that are going on wrongly, in a wrong manner, how will an official not intimidate you and you give a file before start crying foul after? That's what my problem is. So I think that in a nutshell, we must be able to live up to expectations. We must be able to live up to expectations. Meaning that by the time we are picking up on things that we are supposed to do, we are supposed to understand that these errors come straight from the time that we have been talking about a bad system of governance. All our here are house dressings. When the fire is at our backyard, peace has not returned. Things are not moving. Our people are here talking about fires that have left from red. Who's the one asking to give a fire to the SGO is my question I'm asking. With all these batches of lawyers. Now I heard one of the fine lawyers said Cameroon is the rule of law. He has said it. Though it is far-fetched from the rule of law. Though it is far-fetched from the rule of law. Let me tell people that don't be surprised that the person playing the tambour is in the bush for the SDO. Don't be surprised that you would put litigations, put 50 lawyers together. At the end you hear the case has gone to nowhere. It is a kangaroo system that you must understand before you engage. So you don't cry foul where someone somewhere in the other is looking and laughing that they can feel the parley even they stay tranquil. If not, SDOs have gone to school in Enam, they teach them law. SDO, that's not the first election, it's an experienced SDO. Meaning that he knows electoral laws in his palms. All administrative officials, from GO to SDO, because they supervise elections, even though they are in accordance with the LECAM. So you will not tell me that somewhere, somehow, we don't have the evidence, but the action will surely tell you that there is somebody in the bush playing the tambour. And at the end of it, I will be asking you, the chiefs, who asked you to give him the document without considering that before crying for, it's $1 million question. After everything, Mr. Leo, it's the original election they said they're talking about. It's no event for people like us, so let them continue going on as they're going. Thank you.
Yes, but how do we explain that at a time when almost everybody is clamoring for regional, for greater effective decentralization in Cameroon, we still find threats of the administration, central administration, wanting to decide on almost everything. That is, whoever has to decide or represent their people.
You see, this is just an indication of what is going to actually happen, especially, like I said earlier, all habits die hard. There are some privileges that these officials had been enjoying up to now. You will not. You see, the reason that they might have been given officially on some other public media for the delay to implement the decentralization or the constitution since 1996, that decentralization was made as a form of, say, unitary decentralized state, was not actually being enacted to be materialized so that people enjoy their autonomy. It is now coming, and it is taking some of them still thinking that they have not learned the lesson what centralism has actually done to the development of this country. So you discover also there is this, I keep on saying, there's an upbringing where you develop a culture of always thinking that you have to be always the one who talks and the others listen. Meanwhile, with decentralization, whereby it is the grassroots that speak and the leader implement or execute. And that's why you find out that based on the fact that a lot of persons, especially people who don't take time to interpret or to look at the laws before they go in for elections, they end up only having their mouths to shout because the laws are really clear from the beginning. And you see again, it is now that Cameroonians are now especially looking at the laws, especially they say laws may be bad, but they can also be used to tie somebody up if you really go beyond looking just the wordings. And at this point, I want to actually congratulate some of those party persons. You know, we can talk till tomorrow about partisanship and the rest. The laws have been made in such a way whereby it is only the parties that actually put forth candidates. Those people who are talking about independent candidates, that they give you conditions that will actually succeed to become an independent candidate, like passing donkey passing the eye of a needle. And you've hardly even heard from the history of this country that somebody actually stood in as an independent candidate. So the law drafters, actually, they were conscious that by doing it this way, it is going to be the parties that will have the prime place to determine what politics. Unfortunately, also we have political parties that we ask them what is their technical structure in terms of ideology, in terms of vision for the country. It's all about an individual. And until we start moving away from the fact that a party is different from an individual, it is based on the macrocosm of people who come together and decide to push an ideology ahead, you will discover that we will still be hemmed. We might be talking to you about an example of an SGO. It's the second one after the one in Kumba or in Meme. But there are other SGOs in other places who are doing the same thing, if not worse. But because the people in that community also, they are not as sensitive or conscious, that they are supposed to also hold these administrators to book, and they take for granted of the gullibility of the people, poverty and all of those things. And you discover that at the end of the day, Cameroon becomes the laughingstock in the African concept of nation.
Okay, now, but let's also look beyond Fako. Investitures are creating cracks almost everywhere. Even in Fako, we have many persons who would have loved to represent the people at the regional councils, but seemingly across the board, across the nation, the old guard is still dictating the pace.
It goes to what I earlier cited, that is party loyalty. And if you see who are these old guards and what has been their role in that particular party within the past or last 10 years, you will see that party politics has a role to play. But the problem here is that we have greed. I'm seeing more of greed as Cameroonians, more of greed as people who don't want the development of this nation. What will explain that you have served as in the government for over 9 years or 10 years as regional delegate for secondary education or whatever, or delegate or whatever. There are the point in time when we need a regional councillors, you still come in and put your name as a candidate under that same party, and the party allows. Normally the party should have that criteria to say, okay, yes, let's see that we need this, we need representative, and this representative should come on people who have little or no connections within the last 5 years, as far as our civil servant leadership is concerned, even retirement, so that you bring the fresh blood to beef up the system. But on the contrary, you see all that determine setting up the list. Go to who sets up the list.
They went on retirement as civil servants and not as politicians.
No, they had been politicians. I will tell you for certain, maybe I got it wrong. There is no office, original delegate who is not a party militant. When it comes to election, I'll quote you, go to those electoral positions. You see no fly, they'll go back and campaign. They have a strong root at that position. So it's what we call the ideology of the party need to sit in during this process, that we are struggling to build Cameroon from effective decentralization. Where Cameroon is faced with a lot of problems. What do we do at this level? Let us try by this process to make it neutral, so that people see that we are giving opportunities to others. It's not just one particular person that are taking leadership. Look at those who are drawing up the list. Who makes up those who are drawing up the list? People who have worked in the government for the past 30-40 years, and they are the person determined. Look at what is happening in Kumba. If you go to investigate in Kumba, you will see that it's still the same. So I'm just giving you a raw resume. And secondly, please say something which again I'll bet you decipher about chiefs. I said chiefs are supposed to be apolitical and non-partisan, but when you look at chiefs in Cameroon now, they are not apolitical and they are not not political, but they are partisans. They are all politicians, and that's why it's plain to their role. How we explain that you do a list and go and to deal? It's not the party politics.
Yeah. Okay, if not of party politics, no, but we should also understand that this notion of chiefs being subsidiary of the administration. Maybe they went, yes, auxiliaries.
Registration process law, the Elecam booklet gives you procedures to register.
Agborem just wrote to us that the SDO went to explain to them the law. I don't know why the SDO should be telling them the law when they themselves were they ignorant of the law?
That's the job of Elecam.
But if the SDO is went to explain the law, I don't know how their files ended up in the hands of the SDO. So, but Agborem Solomon, who is watching us from Limbe, is saying that the SDO was explaining the law to the chiefs. I don't know whether the chiefs are
well, but Leo, that is to me, like I said, those administrators, they are supposed to play the role of facilitators. Unfortunately, in the course of doing that, sentiments comes in, and this is where we are running into this trouble.
Yeah, but now, investiture, many persons who are disgruntled I've spoken with, they say that investiture would mean that decisions are taken at the level of Yaoundé, but we are talking about regional representations that are supposed to come from the base, that is the regions, and not Yaoundé deciding for, say, the far north, the northwest, the southwest, and the west region.
Sure, Mr. Leo, the regional elections is an offshoot of decentralization, and the objective of it is to calm or quell the tension that has been ongoing, especially in the two regions of Cameroon, the northwest and the southwest regions. But when you see the politicking that is ongoing, the impression I have is that it is creating more problems than solving. Because when we talk about these regional elections, we're supposed to have free, independent, and transparent people to lead the different localities. But when you see the aspect that politics is still playing a hand inside it, the question I ask myself is, when can we separate politics? Why should we bring in party politics in everything? Because those who are supposed to go and represent, who are supposed to represent the different localities, Mr. Leo, were supposed to be chosen free, fair, and very transparent without the hand of the administrators. Because if the SDO goes in, before I said something before now, Mr. Leo, that Fako is just one of the so many cases. And I want to say that the program will have to be prime hour, and that so many people, you will be shocked that maybe tomorrow after, other areas where they have had injustice the same may write to you that what you guys were discussing, it's also going in our own area.
Yeah, but there's section 250 of the provisions of the law amended says that candidates representing divisions shall be nominated by political parties.
Good, that is the point.
Okay, now you see, it shows that there was already an error.
Talking about
there was already an error.
That is one. But sub 2 says list of candidates representing traditional rulers shall be headed by candidates who are first class or second class chiefs. Whereas there is a single seat in a constituencies resulting from warding or special grouping, the candidates representing the division shall be nominated by a political party. Then the candidate representing the traditional rulers must be a first class or second class chief. However, where there is no first class or second class chief, the candidature of the class chief shall be admissible. Just go on.
Mr. Leo, when you go through what the law itself says, then to a certain extent, the SDO is in his role. To an extent, it's very clear. Because he is coming in as the overall boss of the division. Because the law makes it clear that it comes in through the party. And let us be honest and tell Cameroon that it is very difficult to differentiate an SDO, a DO, a governor, a minister from the CPDM. It's very difficult. A majority, it is true that some may be different, but
where does the SDO come here? We are talking about the electoral code that has to do with Elecam.
That's what I'm saying.
And that has to do with the
party. It comes from the party.
Yeah,
that's what they are saying. It comes from the party, and that's why I'm saying that it is very difficult, if not impossible, to differentiate top officials of the government with the CPDM. It is very clear because a very simple example is each time there are campaigns, during elections. You will have media offices alone.
Voila.
The head of the whole Northwest for the CPDM is Philip Muyang. He is part of the system. Go to the Southwest, I'm sure it's Peter Mafanimo Songe. He's part of the system. So if you want to look at this thing well, Mr. Leo, the SDO, like Jarvis was saying, and I want to agree with him, the SDO may be acting on instructions from other quarters. Yes. Because the Southwest and Fako in particular has always been a very tough one each time there are elections. We know what happened during the elections of the mayor. We know what has happened. There has always been this tussle between the Fako elite. And I'm sure that one time, a paper, the Guardian posted an article that Fako CPDM elite reconcile. It means that they were not first of all one. And it is very normal that what is ongoing now in Fako, Mr. Leo, the SDO maybe, I cannot authoritatively confirm it, yes, but the SDO may be acting on instructions from certain quarters. It means that certain quarters...
My question to you is investiture that is decided in Yaoundé for persons who are going to represent the region.
Yes, let me just make a clarification here, and this is where again for pedagogic purpose, the party has been able to structure itself in such a way whereby the central committee chooses people who are, they call them delegates. They have what they call regional coordinators. They have divisional coordinators. But I think where I fault the party, which might be at variance with what the grassroots militants think, is that where are the section presidents here? Where are the subsection presidents here? Where are the sales presidents here and the rest? And this is where, unfortunately, the party, the way it is structured now, has to have a loophole, because at some point now it decentralizes the grassroots militants, because all of these people who are not resident in that locality might not be able to actually bring out the developmental needs which decentralization is supposed to solve after this election, because the councillors are supposed to be the people who are living the daily realities of the people in that particular locality.
Okay. For Elvis, are we seeing investitures creating new cracks within the ranks of the CPDM party, because many more persons would have loved to represent the party but not given that opportunities? Yaoundé is deciding for regions. What is decentralization here if everything has to come from Yaoundé? Because we are talking about the central committee.
Sure.
I am surprised we haven't talked about decentralization here. Let me tell you in real terms that the decentralization is a farce. In real terms, what they call decentralization, because let me tell you something here. As I talk about decentralization, the SDOs will still be lords over the councils. They are still the supervisory authorities, whether you like it or not. And I thought that in the putting in place of regional delegates of local councils and all the like, these were supposed to be the person who are supposed to be as supervisory authorities over the council, but it's not the case. So why appoint regional? And very soon we'll hear divisional delegates of local councils when they are not even playing the role as to supervise the council that's supposed to be under them. Instead, the council are under Minat. So you can see, I said that it's a kangaroo system confused. Yaoundé is confused. That's the truth. So if you see the laws here, the way the laws are flapping above, one person will tell that he is within his role of jurisdiction. Now the other will tell you that he's within his role of jurisdiction. Now they leave people confused now at the level of the courts. That's why I said that even Elecam itself is part of CPDM. Because if we were talking about separation of power, where Elecam is not under the executive, where Elecam is an independent body, Elecam should have called the SDO to order. Elecam should have been the one on the field to educate the chiefs and not even the SDO.
That's true.
What is the role of Elecam? Elecam now is sitting and sleeping because Elecam is under the executive arm of the government, and the executive arm of the government controls judiciary, legislative. In short, everything is controlled by the executive. So all these SDO, as we're talking, that's why I said that I hear my learned counsel talk about the rule of law. But you should not be surprised that upon all this grammar we're talking about, upon all the court cases we shall file, you will still discover what remains is what remains. That is the kangaroo system we're talking about. Therefore, in my own humble opinion, my backyard is on fire. Guns are exchanging in the air, smoking in the air. People are dying. That is the good news. That is more concern for us, CRM and myself, as a bona fide English-speaking Cameroonian. All these issues that are talking blah, 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 blah. When I saw in a single day 10 people are dying, 5 people are dying, I don't need to know whether it is military, whether it is amber, whether it is civilian. The lives matter. And I thought that in a normal condition, Just as we were thinking at the level of the CRM that the state would have been able to take a pause, look at these issues that lives are lost. Elections can come at any time. Must go now? All right now, must it go now? Look at the civilian chiefs. All of them are civilian chiefs. I am happy that the system is biting they themselves. A system that we had castigated, and they said we are secessionists, we are terrorists, and all the like in various appellations. Today, the very system is trying to bite them and to tell them that the person you think will represent you, we will decide from Yaoundé, and you have no choice. All of our babbling here, don't be surprised that in the next few weeks to come, the situation will be dead and gone. And you will see those who have decided from Yaoundé, just as the present parliamentarians, many of the mayors were delegated from Yaoundé. You come in my village, even my mayor from Bengui was delegated from Yaoundé. They know what I'm talking about from Bengui.
Okay.
So, what are we talking? The system is porous. So let us just watch. For those who think that regional election is good for them, let them go and be licking their wounds. We are watching them lick their wounds. When they finish, we will remind them.
Good evening, dear panelists. I am surprised that I am hearing the SDUs and DUs are involved in the selection of representatives of delegates for the regional council. I listened to Mr. Tambetiku, a human rights activist and a member of the Elections Cameroon over radio, Boya, and he made it clear that administrators are not to be involved in the process. How come this is happening now? I suggest the competent authorities should look into this matter and put things right. Renda is writing from Boya. This one says, tell them, my brother, we appreciate this program. Thanks to Mr. Liu and his team for organizing such a wonderful program. I am Samuel, writing from Mutengene. Good evening, house. Tell that man to sit up. What is he looking at that corner? Max is writing from Bamenda. I don't know what you're talking about, Max. This one says, we need dialogue. We are suffering. Okay, good evening to you. Good evening, I'm Deep Daniel, writing from Limbe. Just want to say to tell Jarvis that I like his courage, and he is welcome back from being arrested. And may I have his number? Okay, good evening to you all in the studio, and special welcome to the kangaroo man. I thought he has been arrested. It's Isaac writing from Bamenda. Good evening, dear panelists. Is Kennedy writing from Bamenda. I want to say welcome back to Jarvis. I think we were going to lose you the same way we lost Wazizi. Okay. This one says, I wish to welcome Kangaroo Man back after a long time without hearing from him. In my best program Prime R, I also salute the house. I'm Gong Golof, writing from Yaoundé. This one says, Bonadi Kombo is in Marwan. Please, Mr. Teke. Mr. Teke, good evening to you. Now, some persons are asking whether new institutions that are created in Cameroon are grounds for the compensation of many friends and persons in the system. We saw what happened with the Senate and now regional council. The same faces are being recycled. Is that their observation from the list?
Of course, it's not a Cameroonian creation. Unfortunately, it's not a Cameroonian creation. When you hear political scientists talk about what they call the Americans have a way they call it, well, it's condemned system or something, where a president comes and every other person who was with the other former president is like at that level of the White House, new tenants come in and arrest. So it's not just a Cameroonian system, but unfortunately, like I said, Leo, the issue in Cameroon is that it becomes so fragrant that you see what you might call tribalism, shouting that you cannot even pretend that this is not discrimination, because the party is created to abrogate or to allocate certain resources based on the fact that politics about who gets what and when and how. And when it happens that, especially with the situation in Cameroon, because when you see a country that is talking about 25 million persons, and then you find a president that is elected with less than 3 million vote cast in his favor, he starts telling you, where are the other 22 million Cameroonians? And are these 22 million Cameroonians the ones who are making all the noise around, and then when it comes to go to register on the electoral register, they don't go and register? Because, Leo, there is something which is very critical. The age group between 20 and 35 constitutes the greatest single sociological section in terms of population. But that's also the group that is actually staying away from when it comes to political decision making. Even when you go even to like the normal party gatherings and the rest, what role do they play? They are the ones that are sent on Cameroon to go and buy drinks, to go and buy or to go and act as an interface to other people to create confusion and the rest. And this is where we are paying all of this, and you find that the same people are being recycled. Because you find a situation where classmates, because again, people are justifying. I did a call on ageism, and I don't know that. The old people are actually asking me, I am 75 years. What do you expect me to be conversing with somebody who is 40 years? There is no point of our world are different.
Yeah, but is this not dangerous for the? Are we talking about general interest or the interest of?
I am saying, Leo, what the young people should do, the youth in this country, they are blessed for the fact that they have gone to read all the type of context and content and all of that. Let us put that knowledge into real practical, and look at what the Jews are doing. The Jews, they are less than, probably represent 5% of the population of the United States, but they dictate who can be the president of the United States, because they have a very strong advocacy power. They have a very good, strong lobbying power. The young people are not organized to a point where they are manipulated, and you see it is deliberate. But when you look at the unemployment rate, it makes, because you see, and this is the logic. Go to those people who are drafting the laws. They actually make it in such a way. Do you know why up to today, for a typical example, without digressing, why the certain tax cannot be collected? They call it the land tax, because most of the landlords are the drafters of that law. Verify the big people who have houses that we can be able to collect taxes. Look at where they have come from. I don't want to cite any particular institution in this country for us to start making reference and ask why the government cannot collect taxes from those particular. That is the most difficult tax to collect in this country, not because it cannot be collected, because the drafters of the tax code are the people who are supposed to implement that law in the field, and they do it in such a way whereby they had to hide certain things and people cannot, and let the young people who are between that 20 to
the second peaceful march called by his party. Special greetings to the released star Jarvis, who was arrested because he went to cover the Kangaroo Man active participation organized by his party. For the legal fracas between the collective of lawyers for their clients, disgruntled chiefs, and the Fako SDU over his interference in the nomination election of their clients to represent the chiefs in what I call the CPDM Regional House of Chiefs, the following questions are begging for answers. What is the Electoral College for the elections of chiefs to represent them? What is the role of the SDU in this entire investiture process? So if the SDU came in, then it's just to tell you that they enjoy the supervisory authority position and will do all to hit the implementation of the decentralization process. After all, the disgruntled chiefs should stay mute. After all the disgruntled chiefs should stay mute. They should continue to enjoy the 50,000 francs peanuts from the state coffers, since you can't buy the finger that fits you. Before I conclude, are these disgruntled chiefs first or second-class chiefs? The lawyers are doing their jobs. Tala is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Council. Good evening, senior citizens. Special good evening to my senior prefect, Joel Mokage. A traditional ruler under normal circumstances is not supposed to vote and should be politically neutral, since he is the father of all his subjects, irrespective of his political views. Prince 4. is writing from Douala. Pilo says that good evening to the house. In order to change Cameroon, we must first change our mindsets. Pilo is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you. Good evening to you all there. Mr. Kum, there is nothing that will change for what we, the kangaroo government, to be. Ka is writing from Limbe. Mr. Tiku Weasley says, good evening to you and your team. Mr. Kum, we don't need dialogue. We need negotiation. Everything they are doing now, decentralization and CPDM chiefs, is a total waste of time. It won't work. Thanks. Weasley Tiku, writing from the United States of America. Good evening to you. Good evening. Mr. Liu Kables is writing from Bafusam. Mr. Tamin Jarvis, I love your move. Okay, it's Tamai Jarvis. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I actually like the debate. Maybe Mr. George Moffo does not know that no one can ever be appointed in Cameroon who does not militate with the ruling party. Oben Wilson, writing from Boya. Good evening to you. Hello, Mr. Liu. I'm Gopal Ngong from Akale Street, Kumba. Greetings to all of your panelists, especially Taj Jarvis. I'm so delighted to watch him talk again. Please let him share his experience with us. Until this system is dismantled, let's not expect anything good, okay? This one says, Mr. Leo, good evening to you and your panelists. Is it a part of the electoral code that files meant for Elekam are channeled through the senior divisional officer? Is it not the fault of the chiefs to have handed the file to the SDO Prince Will? Is writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you. Dagian Dunatian, writing from Yaoundé, says Cameroon is under attack. We need to be set free through prayers. The time is now. Good evening to you again. Emil, writing from Jutin, says hi and greetings to the house. I like those who are in the panel. Thank you to you. Emil, writing from Jutin. Now, investiture, is this not also creating political exclusion to some level? Yes.
That's what the Constitution says. We were joining the party doing that.
I think
no, I'm talking even within the ranks of because when they say regional elections, everybody should feel free to be
within the
also
law.
aspire. Yes,
I think like Dr. Badger said, we must look at it from the context of the law.
Okay.
And what does the Bible of Elekam talk about when it comes to picking a candidate and when it comes to criteria for a candidate to be eligible? And remember that this investiture is not just coming at the level of personal. It's not this election is an indirect election. It's not like a general election, the municipal and legislative elections where you can say, okay, investitures, a businessman can sponsor a candidate and start.
Yeah, but even at that level,
this level
but even at that level, we are talking about regional elections. Would it not have been better for the people of the Southwest region to think that this is coming from within them and not necessarily from Yaoundé? Same for those of the West region.
It would have been better if the party decide that they want to do things right. Like I said, or like you said, it is a compensation. Regional election is more of a compensation to party loyalists and who support the party hierarchy.
Is that what the law says?
It's not what the law says, but the investiture, this is the level where investitures are coming in. Investitures are not coming in terms of money. They're coming in terms of loyalty and respect. And who respect who and who is able to lead the feet of who. That's how the investiture is coming. Unlike in a regional, in a municipal election where investiture will come with finances. But this time around is, this man has been loyal to me, this is my son, this man has done this, I think he should be there. Because the indirect election, whether you like it or not, the party will select his candidate. So I think that if the party has a heart of Cameroonians, if the party feel that it's time to take Cameroon to a new dimension, while maintaining that the longevity of the party, it's time for them to set principle and guidelines to say, this is not an election of compensation, but an election that people should see CPDM as being different, people should see SDF as being different, people should see whichever political party that is going for the election has been different. By being different, what do I mean? By stating that those who have held position in government and are retired are not supposed to go in again for this regional election, because it is clear Prince by default should be a regional a delegate at the regional council. The same thing with Kangaroo. The same thing with me, myself, and you, Leo. We are eligible, and the question now is what criteria is being used. The criteria is simply because you can link you are loyal to me and you have been loyal to the party, and we select you not on what you can do. Remember, there's a statement that Crise made, and I like using that statement in pidgin, that if this thing really happen, where stick never die. When stick go dry, when the thing go come, what will happen? This is the same thing that's happening. When the House of Chiefs will be set up, the SDO will definitely control this House of Chiefs. Remember that the party is putting those who can buy the ideology at the bigger level. It's not just at this level of handpicking who can be eligible. It's to handpick people who can represent the ideology of the party in terms of finances, in terms of logistics, in terms of ideas, and in terms of long-range planning. You cannot go and bring somebody within the party that may not be able to fit into the party ideology when the regional house will meet. There will always be conflict of interest, and the same chiefs will be are being handpicked because they don't want chiefs that cannot be controlled. Remember that we go deeply into effective decentralization. It's giving powers more to the regional level, to the common man, than even the central level, and that is why they are afraid. And that's why they are very skeptical in the selection process. They want people who can be extremely loyalists in such a way that when the house is to meet, they will not have problems in meeting with their CBD ideology, with their party diplomacy. Okay. That's why you see their investiture is not at the level of finance, it's at the level of loyalty and respect. Look at those that will be selected. Lou, I can bet you heaven, black, red, green, that those who will be selected are people who are who are godfathers, who have been in the position of leadership for 30-40 years in Kumba leading, in Boya leading, in Bamenda.
Now, regional councils, going by those that have been invested, I'm sure you've seen some of the names in the list for the regions. Do we think that a miracle is going to come out of them, or is going to be a strictly party discipline-like way of doing things, that is airing the voices of the people of these regions?
When you look at the selection of the investiture, you look at the personalities. Like the Kangaroo man said, nothing new is going to come out of it. First of all, because the criterion that has been used to select them, first of all, is very questionable. I tell with Jarvis when he said that those who have been selected are those who say yes to the bosses. Mr. Leo, at one time on this program, I had said that in my area, for instance, where I come from, the Lord Mayor who has been there from 2013 to 2020, because they actually gave them 2 years. Elections were to be in 2018, as well as a parliamentarian. This is somebody who started the construction of a council market, 4 buildings, and could not realize for 2013 to 2020. It's 7 years. Even if he wanted to build which kind of mansion, he would have finished for 7 years. And the same parliamentarian who the people have not seen is the same parliamentarian. Now, this digression was to tell you, Mr. Leo, that the CPDM has a way it functions. They call it a party discipline. They decide those they choose, and they tell you what to do. At one time during the elections, the municipal and legislative elections, the people of Mayo Saba, where the speaker comes from, Kavayege Jibri, we knew that during the celebration of the CPDM anniversary, the people came out and said, we don't want you again. They said it. It was on papers. Lady Sahel newspaper, those who are doubting it can get that paper, which is a paper based in the north. Now, the people said, we don't want you. Kavaye did not only come in the list, he's still heading the National Assembly. It goes to tell you that the CPDM has a way it functions. And those some of us who sit with certain personalities of the CPDM, they tell you, no, press. Dans le RDPC, on a les règles internes. Pour le RDPC, quand tu entres d'abord, they tell you that you're still young, you need to mature. It means that if Prince enters the CPDM in 2020 like now, I'll get mature in 2035. And they need to put me. I don't know what they do inside. Because all the faces, when I went through, for instance, the list of Douala, there was no face that is new. There is no face, there are household names. Because with the politics in Cameroon, Mr. Leo, it is very difficult to fall from sky. I'll give you another example. The parliamentarian for Camer Center, Ngalajo, right? Honorable Ngalajo, right? He's somebody I've been with the party for long, even back in my days in the high school. He was already in the party and he was working till he becomes parliamentarian in 2020. It tells you that within the CPDM, you don't just fall from sky. They cook you, they prepare you. When you're mature, they show you to the world. So if you look at what is happening to the Southwest today, Mr. Leo, it is maybe because the chief is not a household name in the party. It is maybe because the chief has not found favor in the eyes of the Peter Mafanimo Songes, the Mbela Moki Charles, the Narova Lyongas and the others. Because those are the big guns of the Southwest region, and particularly in Boya. And you don't just fall from sky and they make you. They always want somebody whom they can control. Why? Like my colleague in Kumba said, Aga Christopher, it's like you cannot buy the finger that fits you. And some of us who are maybe too tough, I want to believe that somebody like the kangaroo man is of the CPDM, and even if he's given the position, it's going to be very difficult for the person who gave him the position to control it.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
So they always want
they'll never give
they always want someone who is, to an extent, not towing the line. When I looked at an example, Mr. for proximity state, when I look at, for instance, the 25-man delegation who are leading Mr. J Council, there are people, to be honest, who some cannot, not to say they cannot write their names, their level of literacy is questionable. Some who don't have the ordinary level. But since the minister from Yaoundé comes with his list, and the people are forced to vote that list, I want to believe, I said it here one time, Mr. Leo, that if elections in Cameroon were really fair and transparent, and that if Cameroonians were given the opportunity to choose their people, not what we have today, you will be shocked at what you're going to have. But since we're living in a country whereby everything is done at the level of Yaoundé, like somebody said that when Yaoundé sneezes, Cameroon catches cold. Since everything is done at the level of Yaoundé, everything that comes to the common man, take it or leave it, you must accept it. Because at the end of the day, like what is ongoing today with in Fako, Mr. Leo, we can only do much of the talking. It's very true that it's very true that the media that we are, we form the fourth state, and we believe that what we are saying today, somebody somewhere should interfere, so much so that justice should be handed over to the traditional ruler, whom I feel has been unjustly treated.
How do we expect things to get fixed? Because the regional elections are the definite expectations of the so much talked about the definite
decentralization, special status. It's all
definite end to the so much talked about decentralization process, because this is also a fulfillment of some of the recommendations of the major national dialogue. Do you see with great hope, expectations, the full implementation of the decentralization process for especially the people of the Southwest and Northwest regions with the coming into force of the special status?
Mr. Leo, I don't want to talk here water in my mouth.
Yeah, because we already have a picture of the persons who are supposed to see into it that the special status is fully implemented.
I said on this platform, you only hear me well. And hear me
Take your pens.
I said very clearly that once you have a wrong mathematical formula, the answer must be wrong. Hear me well. As far as the national dialogue was built on falsehood, as far as those who were supposed to be part and parcel of that national dialogue in terms of key actors of the crisis were not there, any decision emanating from that national dialogue has failed on arrival. Hear me well. That's why I'm saying it clearly that so long as electoral laws have not been revamped, the credibility of any election in this country will continue to be put to question, and you will see the kind of people that they will put forth in the name of that. Let's be very honest here that as of now, what needs to be done is that the country needs to be redone. You need to redo the country again. If you carry out another genuine dialogue, as we are advocating, that brings in place key holders of the conflict, the results you will get will be amazing. And from that recommendation, you will hear sincerely from the parties involved not CPDM sympathizers, I mean from the real parties involved, you hear them tell you that let us ensure that bloodshed is brought to an end. We get guys in the bushes, also have been displaced in Nigeria, internally displaced. We also basically have been burned in the houses and all the like. We get them back to where they are supposed to be. After that, we will now carry an election that will represent the people. Anything different from that, we are singing Hallelujah Choir and dancing Bafia dance. I don't. This topic even is just a topic we are just blowing wind in the air. Because when I blow it now or tomorrow, Yaoundé has his agenda. To them they say, let's say Ipa decades is a fatigue. Even they say. That's why I said that the people on the grassroots who were supposed to call Yaoundé to order have failed in their duty. If you had told Yaoundé that no place, let us wait for this election because guns are still smoking in the air. Look at the suffering in the northwest region. Look at the suffering in other areas. Let's move Fako a little bit. Some people told me that people are not suffering in Fako. I say if go down in Boya, you see those little children, 5 years, 7 years, who are out selling the night. I called one the other day, I was asking, what are you doing outside? My auntie has told me that if I don't say I will not eat. That is 6 years old with eggs on the head selling. And some CPDM militants tell you everything is okay in Fako. The absence of exchange of real guns in Fako Center does not mean that all is well. People are suffering. There are rooms I have visited. One room with about 10 persons sleeping. They get matters every day. The matters don't even have where to stay. Okay, good. Because they are standing. Good evening. It is a call for concern. Life first. All these other things, we are just singing songs in the air.
Good evening to you in the studio. This is Diana Christine from Bamenda. I am enjoying your program and I want to say welcome back to TAR. Jarvis, I support you, Mr. Kangaroo. What's well said. This one says, good evening to you. People in the panel, especially to our release Jarvis and Mr. Fai for not being on the platform for a while. I do enjoy your discussions. My own idea is they are wasting resources by making all that. Okay, Mr. Leslie is writing from Batibo. This one says, good evening, Mr. Kuma. Love your program. Please, traditional chiefs who are partisans do not have their subjects at heart. Greetings to Jarvis for his release that he should have courage. Charles is writing from Yaoundé. Greetings to you, Mr. Liu, and all in the studio. Permit me say Asha to Jarvis. Thank you guys for this great and educative program. Special thanks to you, Mr. Liu, for the choice of your panelists for each topic. I love the program so much. Dick Mutimoti is writing from Mutangene. Great debate there, Leo. This is what we have been saying for years. The regional elections will not provide democratic values in the regions. It is unfortunate to notice that we have landed ourselves into one-party system in Cameroon. The House of Chiefs will be the House of the CPDM. Prince Ekoso, the national president of USDP, is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Prince. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all of you at the studio. I really enjoy your debate. Fogwe Rodrick is also writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. More grace to your able and long live your program. I am downloading the program right now. Someone on that debate table has been missing. Welcome back and love the way he talks. Rita writing from mile 6 in Mancon, that is in Bamenda. Good evening. Mr. Liu and the panelists in the studio. I just want to say welcome back to my brothers Elvis and Jarvis. CPDM is the dominant party of all the heads of authorities in this country. God help us. And bless Elvis, writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your team. Regional elections will not help, but genuine federation will be the best. 2 states, 10 states. Okay. Gasparini is writing from Kumba. Greetings to you, Mr. Leonard. My heart was my mouth when Jarvis was picked up. Happy he's released. Uncle Nji is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Just want to welcome Jarvis and the Kangaroo Man back in the program. Madam Ako is writing from Limbe. Now we move to our second topic, which has to do with what is happening in Kumba. We know that the administrative bench of the Supreme Court has ordered for a rerun of the elections for the position of the city mayor of Kumba City. Now, what do we say or describe what is happening in Kumba? Is it a show? of the fights between two camps in Kumba in this player?
Again, you see again, the first topic we're handling interparty.
It's in party, yes. Persons fighting, yeah.
But now you have now intra-party. You see, again, this is the culture of democracy which is actually absent, because you find that people use every other thing which is undemocratic to access to power using other means, and it catches up on them somehow. You find a scenario where I overheard one of us say here that there are people who have served particular positions or in other offices, and they still insist that they want to still be frontline leaders. But again, you can even be there, the law permits, but use the transparent means to stay there. When you find, up to today, they're still quoting Nokombele Kevin as a government delegate, but he was a CPDM man. But the developments that he brought through his leadership in Kumba, they are still citing it in Kumba, because that is what leadership is expected from followers. When followers see their life changing substantially, you can stay there, because we have not also understood why we come from cultures where we can allow a traditional leader to be there till eternity, till death do him part with the traditional stool. But when somebody has stayed as a politician on a particular, we start thinking that the person has overstayed is welcome. It is also because they are not satisfying the aspiration of the people who are actually there. Now, the issue here, which you find a particular aggrieved militant, who is a councillor by right, because at that point of election, which is almost similar to the first topic, because it's also some sort of an indirect type of thing where a group of councillors that wins a council, based on the law, they are supposed to choose one of them to become the city mayor. Unlike when it used to happen where they used to appoint a government delegate. Now this is a case now that power has even been given out to the grassroots. Choose a leader amongst you now to represent your city. Even amongst they themselves, they cannot agree that they get the best. You still find manipulation, and you still find people. There was sometimes we were talking, and a story came to my mind how ballot box of when an election that was taking place within the party was running behind the certain road there in Tole, coming because they were following a particular person to take away the ballot box on the way before it reaches the party secretariat. It tells you that even amongst the party that we think that things similarly are doing are fine, there are still a lot of disgruntled people. And I want to tell you that the day that you will find an opportunity that you have independent candidates, you will see how parties will all die.
Okay. Parties will all die. Kamer Jarvis, this tussle for the position of the city mayor of the city of Kumba, the Green City, can we say it is a tussle to get to fix Kumba, or it is to show who is who in the city?
It is not the tussle to fix Kumba. If it was or is a tussle to fix Kumba, then there's no need for election. Remember that, Leo, we are already in a volatile environment. At this point in time, what we need now is that common sense to come together and build Kumba, because Kumba is already in a war zone. The fact that guns are not frequent now in Kumba Center doesn't mean that the entire city council is fine. What happened to Kake? What happened to the nearby villages? But now when you bring in politics, at this point in time when the city mayor should be focused on building and moving forward, you bring in now to want to show that you are the bona fide so-called leader at the end that determines a godfather who says it is this man, is this man. To want to remove the government delegate at this one because of a certain error that was committed. We understand that the error was committed, but let's look at the way forward. The city mayor has his plan. And when he was elected, at this point in time, it was more of their party issue. Why will we say that, okay, there is this issue and you took it to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to pass verdict? Why will have other pressing issues in Kumba? People are in Kumba, they don't have places to stay. There are a lot of internal IDPs who have left Nake, Bole, Kwakwa, Ekumbe, Sumo Ekumbe, who are there in Kumba struggling to survive. Potable water is not in Kumba. Frequent power outage is in Kumba. There are a lot of things in Kumba where I see that these people should take to the Supreme Court. That Supreme Court address this issue. I see that they should take this energy to the Supreme Court to say that at this point in time we had flood in Kumba and little or nothing was done to address this flood issue in Kumbawata that destroyed a lot of properties. I was expecting the same people to use the same energy and say, okay, there are a lot of IGBs in Kumba because of this conflict. Let us resolve this. I'm not a supporter of the city mayor, but I just want to paint a picture. The same thing, if you look at what is happening, is the same thing that's happening in Bamenda. The city mayor position is just quiet. But the law, what does the law state? The law states that for you to become a city mayor, you must be someone of that locality. But nobody, the same party is not even raising an issue with the Bamenda issue, just to tell you that it's the issue of who can lick my leg, who I can say I determine who becomes the city mayor. Because if they were following the law as the law is, Bamenda should have had cases on, the case should have been at the Supreme Court, and the city mayor of Bamenda is illegitimate in terms of the law, what the law states. But the party is not saying anything because they have big guns, because he's loyal to those big guns. Come to Kumba, the same thing. Because he has been a government delegate, you don't want him, you feel like you have the upper power to select someone and you say, okay, let this come. This is illegal. Let's get to Kumba. It's an area I've covered within this aspect of conflict. There are a lot of suffering in Kumba. There are a lot of things that the people in Kumba badly need right now. Top of which is electricity, the frequent power outage. But like Dr. Pamofo said, you look at a system where it's more of CPDM to vote their city mayor to determine who takes the shot. It's still a problem. Why is this still a problem? It's not because of the investiture here. Is not because of money. It's in terms of loyalty and respect. How much you can lick my leg and you can lick my feet. It's not how much you can provide to the people. It's not how much you can defend the people. People are singing Nokombele today because Nokombele did a good job. Okay. People are singing Belamoki today because Belamoki did a good job. So the issue is not whether they belong to CPDM, whether they belong to SDF. The issue is, are they working? Yes. If they are working, let them work. So we have to change Cameroon. I think civil society has a great role. I see all of this problem because the civil society that are lacking to teach these people on
we don't know. We are going to be discussing next week on the role of an MP. Do people really know what an MP should be doing? Are they supposed to be going around buying benches, and is that their role?
And buying books. Yes.
Because that is what MPs are known for. We are going to be coming to that, which falls in line with the political education you just raised. But when we find the same party militants fighting to head, is it out of genuine love for the people of Kumba? Or you think that there are some persons
pulling the trigger from behind?
Yeah, pulling the strings from behind, wanting to victimize one person in favor of another. Do we still see the same objective of compensating friends here?
Sure, Mr. Leo, what happens in politics, and particularly the CPDM, is compensation of old friends, old classmates. A case in point is the elections of the city mayor for Douala.
Okay.
We covered it for 2 days at South Fako. It took 2 days. Why? Because within the CPDM, there was Lenge Malapa, who is mayor of Douala 1, and there is a current city mayor. Now, that's Roger Dine, Mbasa Gose Ride. Now, it had to go for 2 days, and it took the central committee, I beg your pardon, and the representative of the CPDM for the whole littoral, Lorenzo. Now, Lorenzo had to come in around evening because we journalists were like, lost, elections are taking all day. It was 2 people of the same party fighting for to the city mayor. It is only by evening that information filtered that Lenge Malapa was resigning. Why? Because the central committee had come, and from information we got, there was a second meeting that they held, and they told him, you are backing out of this thing. But when you look at it, is Mbase Roger Dine, who is now city mayor for Douala, was he the people's choice? Was he not Lenge Malapa? Because voices were going up. I was there, I saw it. People, or those who were voting, a majority wanted Lenge Malapa. But given that Yaoundé had already cooked Mbasa Roger Dine, whose profile if you read, I was thinking that somebody who fell from the sky. No. That man has touched nearly all positions in Cameroon. He has touched big positions. So since the CPDM had prepared him already, they told Lenge Malapa, you back out. It's the same situation that is happening in Kumba today, Mr. Liu. It is because the CPDM or some big guns already have a candidate in whom they are confident. If not, what was wrong in Kumba that they cancelled the elections? Like Jamie said, it's almost the same thing in Bamenda. Like in other areas, we know that elections happened under conditions that were not fair, that were not actually transparent. But what is so special about Kumba? It should just be because somebody somewhere feels that the person who took the position is not that good. What do? Let us pull the trigger by doing what? Let us cancel the elections, call for our elections to run, and let the candidate who wanted to win the election.
Yeah, we are told it is because the SDO had to sign the return sheets of that is
SDO again.
Yes, the SDO signed. But is the SDO who signed the return sheets, which is illegal? But did the people, the councillors, did they vote for the person who is?
Just a brief interjection.
Yes.
Sorry that I.
Did the councillors vote for?
Sorry, this is what happened during the city council election. They had a list had come from Yaoundé by a name I will not call, big gun in Kumba, stating that the party, the head of state, wants this candidate. But the councillors insisted that it is an election, it must be conducted and they must vote. And that was why they moved on with the vote. And they voted the current city mayor. It's not like the vote did not take place objectively. Now when it happened like that, the same person went back and sat with his team, took it to Yaoundé, and the same person is coming back again that Yaoundé wants the same person.
Yeah, but this is something that was trashed at the level of the administrative court.
That's the point I was driving,
okay,
because this is also, I want to say, an embarrassment even to the regional administrative court, because they had actually upheld the decision of what happened in Kumba. It was at the level of Supreme Court after the appeal that all of this happened. So what the information I have, which I think that we should give us more optimism, is that Cameroonians should be optimistic. We might say all the fatalistic things that we want to say. I think if Cameroonians are persistent and demonstrate that consistency, we are hitting the same wall and telling that this thing is wrong, somewhere, somehow, some changes is going to happen. Because some point they also try the patience of people who are aggrieved to see how resilient you can be to stand up to an illegality, and this has proven that if you discover that at the point you see even the lawyers, luckily one of them is a close friend, they did not see this element of the SDO at the level of regional council. It was like a joker that they were keeping close to their chest, only to bring it out at the level of the Supreme Court. All of this is telling us one thing, that we still have judges and some magistrates who can still stand and interpret the law as it is. And I think that that's sufficient reason for us not to be overly too pessimistic.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I think you are somebody who masters the politics in Kumba. Are you sure something is going to change, since it is the councillors who are supposed to make the final verdict? Because we know that it is a rerun for candidates who previously took part in the elections.
Let me say something, whether something is going to change or not, by queuing first with what Mr. Mufo just said. Let us hope. No. Anyone who is hoping in this present system is daydreaming. I mean, daydreaming. The Supreme Court cannot cancel an election without identifying perpetrators and bringing them to book. That is where the kangaroo system comes in. If the SDO in Kmer signed some of the documents that he was not supposed to sign, and he is a law interpreting officer, as I call it, because all of them are SDOs that have done law in school. Law is a main subject at the NAM. And electoral laws, since as territorial administration had managed election before election issues in the country, before even giving it up to elections Cameroon, it means they are aware. I call that a kangaroo system because there is still skeleton in the cupboard. If you found an SDO signature in it, he is supposed to be reported as I speak. When you listen, you go for a rerun. What is going to happen in Kumba? And it is supposed to be known. Let us hear that the Supreme Court has claimed a judgment. This person has been suspended from his duty. This person will pay these millions to the state coffers. Next, I think another SDO will not do that.
But because they work on instructions from other hierarchies, that's why they are playing politics even with issues concerning legality. I am sorry the judiciary have been dragged into a political house, which is a professional house that was supposed to be carrying out its professional job. What will happen in Kumba? Because SDOs are above the law, and because SDOs do and do. Now imagine if I were Supreme Court, do you know how much it will cost the state to rerun the election? It will not be for free. There will be some period for campaign, money will be disbursed for the candidates for campaign. Some monies will change hands from the state coffers before the individuals start losing money to start buying people over. So are we saying that this money that was not budgeted for, caused by the negligence of anybody accused in the case of the causing a rerun for accumulation, just goes scot-free, and the Supreme Court sits and say that the elections will be rerun? You can see how I say when the system is paralyzing, limping on one leg. This is the situation we see here. Because to the Supreme Court, they have done what the opponent left undone. But I tell to the Supreme Court, even the time you took to give the verdict, the incumbent has stayed there for some time. Right? He might have signed some budget, some things are under execution. You don't even know just by announcing. If he foresees that thing might not on his favor, you don't know what might happen with some of the coffers around.
It's true.
You don't know, you cannot tell. So what I'm thinking is that if that court was a serious court, not that it's not judging, if it was a serious court, anybody causing the state to spend money the second time, when the state needs money to fight security issues in the country, means that person is supposed to go in for. And next other SDOs will not mingle with elections as such. So that if you only cause them, they tell you, no, I'm afraid. If you think you can mingle, please come down here and touch the things yourself. But as we are not seeing it, it means it's a whole game. What will happen in the next election? This is it. The man, many incumbent they have the advantage because they have access to money. The incumbent, if he has godfathers and money, now the person who plays smart one to buy more of the councillors carries the day. As a now, cannot say whether the incumbent will win or the other person contesting. Now, if they have the means of investing money anywhere, when any extra amount of getting money, he who pays higher takes the day. It's a simple thing. It means we are encouraging corruption. Because at the end of it, the people in Kumba, the electorates for that council, will not be voting people who can deliver the goods. They will vote people who can pay them the highest. People promise them, all right, I'm sending a child to this place. All right, I'm sending 1 million each for all of you. So if you come forward 1,000 francs each, this council will look at you and laugh. Because they have 1 million that's been promised to them or have been given to them part, and then the other hand to be given after the election and all the like. So we have given room for corruption. That's why I say that this country is limping on a time bomb because all the institutions are all acting in ultraviolence of what is supposed to be. That's the system we shall find here. Money will be spent, corruption will increase. Imagine the incumbent after having relaxed, knowing fully whether is the one. You come and tell him that it's like he has to go for election. He has to go extra miles to buy councillors.
Okay, sure. Good evening to you all. Len Fabrice from Douala. Mr. Leo, you guys are propagating CPDM. Even the MRC man always talk about CPDM. Sincerely, I don't know the agenda of CRM. You will always hear from the criticizing CPDM. So CPDM is their reference from all points of view. The debate is not complete because all the panelists are on the same side. Okay, the CPDM was invited and they promised to be here. So if they are not there, please don't blame me. Good evening, Mr. Lee. I really love your program. Kudos. The SDU are really confused. A presidential decree and an SDU suspending the implementation of a decree, some signing PV intentionally in a good system. Such nonchalant administrator needs to be dismissed instantly. Elvis is writing from Ndop. Okay. Good evening to you, Elvis. Stop calling, please. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Things are not really moving well in our regions. If they can build these regions, they have to forget that they belong to a political party or another, or carry out their duties as a Cameroonian. Fogwe Rodrigue, again writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, my brother. I don't know if the CPDM knows that there is a problem in the southwest and northwest region. Please stop calling. Elizabeth is writing from Mancon. A house built on falsehood is just like a house built on the seashores, and when the waves come, it carries it away. A house, okay. A young Ernest writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you all. I like your program. Mr. Emas Park Line writing from Boya. Good evening to you. Echo Carl from Kumba says, may God help Cameroon, for he is our helper. Indeed, he's our helper. Good evening, Liu. I like your program. Lawrence is writing from Nyasoso. Good evening to all of you guys writing from Nyasoso, and a special one to you, Ernest. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all respected speakers. Ambe Manka from Boya. What an interesting topic. Forward ever. Thank you very much. Good evening to all in the studio, and welcome to Kangaroo Man. Nanga is writing from Bamenda. Thank you all for the enormous efforts you are making to change Cameroon. Passports have finally been released. My sister's own is 1 year off already. God bless you all. B is writing from Boya too. Greetings, Mr. Liu. Panel, congrats for this serious debate. There is no difference between the CPDM and the government. We all should just clear the government to the okay. Che Socrates also writing from Boya. Stop the calls, please. So stop calling. When you call, it becomes difficult for me to read any message. The messages are so many. I want to read them, but you keep calling. I can't read them. Now, Mr. George, Mr. Mufo, what happens next? Everybody gets back to campaigning.
Yes, unfortunately, I actually for once will sympathize and agree with
the Kangaroo Man,
with Far's position, because the priority now should not be wastage of scarce resources through the erring nature of somebody who forgot his role and decided to plunge the state to take it backwards and spend monies that they don't even have. Unfortunately, the laws of this country gives the head of state enormous powers to appoint and disappoint. So he is the only person who can also disappoint the person that he has appointed as SDO. It's not a court to appoint and disappoint an SDO. And so I think our appeal should be based on the fact that the head of state should be able to disappoint an erring official that he appointed who has set the state to spend money, and not just disappoint that same person, but ensure that the person also pays the cost that the state is supposed to incur to organize this particular election. The point there is, again, is the law. The electoral code is clear about when elections are to be rerun. They have a certain number of days that is prescribed, that has to, the state has to reconvene those same persons, those same actors, to go back to the drawing board and do the re-election. Talking about whether there's going to be a particular change, to me, that is not even the issue. I think what the aggrieved parties wanted to demonstrate was the flaws and the shortcomings, or the element of ridiculing a particular official who overstepped his limit. And this should be a lesson to other administrators to also understand that with decentralization, the power is with the people and you are not above the law. Stay in your own camp and let the other person stay in their own camp, and you will see that we'll have harmony. But when you start, it's like on the highway, when you find vehicles moving and entering another person's road, you are creating a total disorder.
Okay. You're creating disorder. I want to read this one because it's coming from Tala, who is one of us, writing from Kumba. The verdict of the administrative bench of the Supreme Court calling for a rerun of the elections of the city council mayor is like God's case. No appeal. We have 30 days for the rerun to take place. For now, Kumba is the only city in Cameroon with a government delegate. The senior divisional officer made a fundamental error to endorse in the elections process verbal, that's the return sheet, instead of the oldest and the younger councillor only. Elections will certainly come to pass in 30 days' time, and Kumba will have a city mayor. However, the tussle will produce fireworks. Ngokele will lock horns with his all-time challenger, Mimanu Gregory, and some other candidates. I'm afraid the CPDM Central Committee will make an embarrassment to invest a candidate which will be contrary to democratic tenets. The senior divisional officer should stay away with his supervisory authority syndrome and allow the ground councillors to choose the pilot of the city. Mr. Liu, is there any special status, so to speak? Cameroon is Cameroon. Okay, good evening to you all. I love your program. Enongene Bushfaller, writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Enongene. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. I enjoyed it best. I like the contributions of most participants. Miss Lee, writing from Kumba. This one says, good evening to you all. I love Mr. Fars Elvis for the way he analyzes issues. Achaki is writing from Dubai. Prince Ekoso, national president of the USDP party, writing from Yaoundé, says, Liu, if the CPDM-led regime is serious about transparency, the Supreme Court should also cancel elections in Fako East, Tiko, Muyuka, Limbe 1, 2, 3. Truth be told, the fraud which went on during the February twin elections in Fako was mind-blowing, but since it satisfied their greed, nobody is talking about it. We must be honest to say that elections in Cameroon have never been transparent. Okay, President Ekoso there from Yaoundé. Good evening to you all. I love the program. Thank you very much. Now, something has to happen. We are going to have maybe the incumbent is going to be maintained, or a new city mayor elect. But many questions are being asked. Why only Kumba, when we know the conditions under which elections took place in the southwest and northwest region?
We must be honest here that Cameroon, the law is the law, and the law applies to whoever blows the piper, determine the tone. And the truth is that the question you've asked has just one simple answer, and the answer is because it is difficult to separate CPDM from administrative issues. And since it's difficult, if it doesn't favor the CPDM party, it doesn't go through. If it favors them, it go through. And if it favors them and disfavors their policies, then now they come in and said who are those that must be fit in to favor to move with their policy. As we are witnessing it now in Fako, where the senior division officer is determining who will be the regional council delegate. And that is just to let you know that they must start by handpicking those who will enter the regional house as people, loyalists of the regime, loyalists of Godfather. How we explain that Moyuka, Tiko, and the worst is Moyuka Liu. I've been to Moyuka front and back covering the crisis in Moyuka. Moyuka during that period was like, this was deserted. But if you look at the figures that came in, if you can give me that figure in Tiko, if you can give me that figure in Limbe, I can say yes for sure. But not of Moyuka. The truth is, but why is it taking long for the Supreme Court to look into that issue? It's simply because it is not favoring the party. Like Prince said, and any other member has been saying here, as Kangaroo said, that the truth is you cannot differentiate the party from administrative authorities. And there is something I think Pamofo said that you cannot punish, that the only punishment that can come from the head of state. No, there's one thing we must understand here, that for these administrative authorities to learn their lessons only when the slash hammer start falling on them. If Cameroon is a state of law, as I've always been saying that Cameroon is a state of law, there's one thing that they must do. That senior divisional officer need to pay the cost and need to be prosecuted. If we are seeing Fako, the lawyers are taking the chiefs are taking the senior divisional officer to Fako to court, why can't they take that? Why can the Supreme Court not give a verdict and ask the senior divisional officer in Kumba to pay damages for an election which he was not supposed to sign? Cameroon need money for national security. Cameroon need money to pay our social insurance benefits. Cameroon need money to construct roads. Cameroon need money to fund other projects. Cameroon need money to take care of internally displaced persons. Cameroon need money for floods. And these are the same money that will be disbursed in terms of campaign. Not only money, the human resources wasted, the time, the energy, and the synergy of the Kumba City Council to form partnership agreements now hang in the balance. He has taken long in that he has been there for over 4 or 3 months. Maybe he has signed partnership deals with other companies. Now with this coming, the destabilization, who pays those damages? Because if the new team comes, they will definitely sweep up the house. We know that in Cameroon, it is it's not about the institution, it's about person. That's a sad thing, which is supposed to be about an institution. Come to what's happening in Bamenda. Nobody's talking about Bamenda. But what does the law state? As far as the city mayor is concerned in Bamenda, what does the law state? Is it because he's a CPDM? Is it because the top barons of CPDM, the city mayor is loyal to them? The civil regard. But the truth here is that we must be honest that the election, there are some petitions, as a petition at the Supreme Court now. There is a petition, and the Supreme Court is supposed to hear about 100 petitions so far, of post-electoral petition. But it will shock you that none of this opposition will win at least a case. None. If they have to win a case, it's just an issue of let their watch transparency.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and your panel. I love your program very much. A regular viewer from Kumba City Council. My brother, Mr. Tayong, has said it all. Much corruption every where. God bless your studio. Ba Stanley is writing from Kumba. Kumchi Mary says, good evening to all great people. I like the program and you guys should keep it up. Good evening to all. Kumchi Mary writing from Boya Town. Good evening to you, Madam Mary. Now, is the current city mayor, government delegate, just unfortunate? Is he a victim of circumstances? And do you see him sailing through?
Sure, Mr. Leo, he's a victim of circumstance, I could put him, because with all honesty, we cannot say that elections were free, fair, and transparent in the different divisions, subdivisions in the northwest and the southwest region. I don't know what is peculiar about Kumba, but like I said before, there is somebody whose hand is manipulating, and the person feels that the current city mayor, maybe for one reason or the other, is not the right choice. And if this came to pass, Mr. Leo, I want to feel that the final results may not prove him the winner again, because if actually he had played his cards well, we would not have gotten here. If we are getting here, it is because maybe he did not play his cards well. It is maybe because he did not align with certain personalities who helped him to be what he is today. My brother first said something which I'm very okay with him. You see, when we organize elections, Mr. Leo, it costs the states a lot. There is a lot of things that take to place. You're going to notice that the city mayor is going to put every resources he has on his part now to ensure that he doesn't lose power. George Orwell puts it in his novel Animal Farm that power corrupts, and absolutely power corrupts. You don't expect somebody who has tasted power to give it like that. It's going to be a very difficult one. And secondly, there is also going to be this aspect whereby the city mayor is already having some money, like Fako puts it, in his control. There are some files he has signed already. There are some contracts some certain persons have taken already. And maybe those things were to happen when his mandate expires, and that should be 2025. But coming to tell him that just few months into a lucrative office like that, because a city mayor is a very lucrative office. Now, coming to tell him that, sir, this seat you're sitting on, we think you did not get it legally or through the ballot box, and that we're going to rerun elections. Even if it is which person at his position, he's going to fight it to ensure that he sits on that seat. So there is a lot of money and a lot of black things that are ongoing for this period till elections holds, because his fate as of now is uncertain. But if I want to say something, I will say that I'm not a prophet of doom, but I feel that I don't actually see him taking the seat again when elections come over, because those who called for the elections we run know very well that something went fishy. And if something went fishy, it is because he did not play his game well. If he played his game well, we'll not have been talking about elections.
But he won the elections.
If he won the elections. It's clear. There's something I've said here.
The elections are cancelled because of the signature of the
This is what I'm saying. That signature is something that at the level of the CPDM, it could have still been killed. You understand? I'm saying that at the level of the party, if the city mayor had played his cards, that signature is too insignificant. It would have been killed. Because we know areas in the northwest and the southwest that on the election day, not up to 20 people voted. It's very clear. But those who have voted are there. They are taking their office.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. I am sure the president of the country will surely set an example on the SDO of Kmer Division. Oben Wilson is writing from Boya. Good evening to you all in the studio. I love and enjoy the program so much. Madame Tebon writing from Galim. Okay. This one is good evening once more, Mr. Liu. Let the disciples of the CPDM feel the impact. It's obvious they have never won any elections in this country. Are they not from the party? Writing from Limbe. No. Stop the calls, please. If you have a contribution, just send them. Mr. Mokanjo, writing from Kumba. Your program is fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Mokanjo. Good evening to you all. I am Prince Will, writing from Douala. I love this program. Thank you, Prince Will. Good evening, Mr. Liu. And all the panelists present. One thing I read in Cameroon history was that the rapid economic growth witnessed in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s came to an end in 1986, barely 4 years after the president came to power. During the period, Cameroon had a growth of 7%. Okay, we are rather retrogressing. Keep calling, even when we say you should not call. Now, for Investiture, I want us to end this program with the decision by the Bamenda City Mayor to engage the services of a bus shuttle in Bamenda. You think that is the way forward? Very briefly, because we are going to...
really very briefly. It is not the way forward at all.
Okay.
I have told you that all the functionary services have run out of ideas. So what they do is counterproductive. What do I mean by this? In the state of insecurity, in the state where the city council restricts bike, I was talking with someone, a CPDM official, who told me that there are areas in Douala Yaoundé where bikes have been restricted. I said correct. But I said the context under which those things are operating in the north is different from these areas you are citing. Why do I say so, Mr. Liu? If you look at it, most of those who were carrying out bike operations in Nwa, some of them in Wum, some of them in Benakuma, some of them in Njikwa, Ngi, have concentrated themselves in Bamenda. And that's why I said that the state that's supposed to have intelligence services was supposed to have analyzed those who are involved in the bike sector and the activities in Bamenda. It's possible. If you go to Bamenda, the person was running bike, for example, in Widikum, who has now come to Bamenda. He has come in a single room with about 5 to 10 persons. He's lodging there. And he's earning a living from that bike. Now, what do we say? We are supposed to weigh the consequence of this bike issue. Now, if you weigh it, those now who cannot move to those areas because the bikes have come in their numbers, what will be the effect, the end result?
Yeah, but now, do you also raise? Are you also questioning those who are putting the livelihood of the bike riders at stake? Because when you use bikes to engage in what has happened in Bamenda today, you also have put the livelihood of many persons at stake here.
Mr. Le, you cannot give the dog a bad name to hang it. The state security officials know what it takes to move within, increase their patrols, and feature those who are using the bike for other purposes. You cannot tell me that because an armed fighter leaves from somewhere, seizes my bike and uses it to go and carry operation, you should keep thousands of people out of the business because you are trying to fish them out. Okay. What I'm saying, the state has all the intelligence that it takes. So what the state would have done was that, you see, lawyers have filed another complaint against the City Council. There at the Bamenda High Court. The case has already been filed already. Why are we saying so? I've had complaints from the Disabled Association in Northwest. The complaint has come up. They have written a letter. I'm sure they're supposed to deposit to the city mayor woman from now, where they say they themselves who used to live into the quarters to move to the areas. So you see, many facets have been affected. That's why I said that if you look at it, the security issue is something which could be handled within. Yes. So at the end of it, the bus shuttles. Let me just add, Mr. Liu. As you see those bus shuttles, I am not a prophet of doom, but I don't know the security measures. Though the city council might know. But I want to support one to hear that one is on fire because we are living in a state of insecurity whereby. Are
you saying
we could be jeopardizing that money that has been earned hardly by city council to put it on the road?
Should we say that the city stays simply with taxis and not the bus shuttle? Is this not just an additional?
Something happens in whereby the almighty late mayor prescribed no bikes, and he succeeded. But again, the issue again here is a hydra. This is where you start finding the manifestation of the real causes of what is happening, which is poverty and the unemployment and all of that. And then you are bringing out a situation because you want to prioritize security, leading now to another element of vulnerability, which is poverty that is going to exacerbate again the cost now of the old. So it's a vicious cycle that has just been created because some of these people were distracted by riding bikes and getting some daily bread. What do you expect them now to do? They also start going now to start kidnapping people and start also seizing money from them. So it's a vicious cycle that has been created, which is unfortunate. But Leo, all of this is going to be solved. If you look at the social economic structure of the Northwest, it's a town that is supposed to be an industrialized town. That is let those farming population who are hardworking, let these politicians in Yaoundé go and bring out financing laws whereby banks can be able to provide finances to economic operators to open industries in Bamenda. We might be talking about bike people. There's no reason why somebody who has gone to university and graduated should be riding a bike, and we are here advocating for them. We should rather be advocating that the economic climate and the bank should be able to finance economic operators who want to operate industries so that more jobs should be created. And that is, to me, that would be the panacea to this all the other vicious things that were happening in this country.
Okay. Yeah. Is that the same situation that brought about the bus shuttle that the University of Buea now enjoys? Because we remember that there was an attack in the University of Buea. The then Vice Chancellor banned taxis.
Yes. Being a science student, I want to bring in some aspect of science here. So every reaction, there's an equal but opposite reaction.
Okay.
Every action.
For every action, there is an equal but opposite reaction. And this is just going. This action by this city mayor is just telling us how the government is handling the Anglophone crisis. That you have a problem, but you choose to provide a solution, a cosmetic solution. The problem is insecurity. Insecurity comes because of what? A, B, C, and D. How can we sit and solve this A, B, C, and D so that insecurity maintained? Now he has decided to rob taxi drivers of their hard-earned money because taxi drivers are now suffering. If you are using bus, imagine how many persons can a taxi carry? 5 maximum. Now, how many persons can those buses carry with which amount? A little amount.
And for now they are free.
For now they are free. So what of those taxi drivers who are working in Bamenda?
Are taxis working now in Bamenda? Are they working now in Bamenda?
There are some taxis that are working in Bamenda.
Okay.
Why should they not work in Bamenda? They should work. Now, secondly, there are some villages. There's on weekends there are taxis that will work in Bamenda. There are some village in my village in Way. I took bike from Bamenda to Way village because of the bad road. And now since bikes cannot work in Bamenda, how will I go to Way with the bad road? Because there's the point in time where I cannot take a vehicle due to the nature of the road.
What I'm saying, are bikes banned in Bafut?
How can they come to Bamenda? Will they fly? Will they reach the bus station to come to Bamenda, or do they have a visa to say, okay, I'm going to this village? That shuttle cannot take me to my village. I just want to briefly articulate the economic meltdown. Another aspect of this is that it's going to there's pollution. Look at the nature of the buses. How many are there new buses? The nature of those buses. Those buses are really old, and look at some of them are not well connected. Now, if we want to do something, we must do something to uphold the integrity of the city. Bamenda can do much better. The city council can do much better. I think let us first of all not look at the cosmetic solutions. Let's look at the root cause of the insecurity in Bamenda and see how we can solve it, because he's just giving us a textbook example as to how Cameroon government is handling the Anglophone crisis. And thank you, City Mayor.
Mr. Leo, what the city mayor for Bamenda, Paul Achumbang, is doing, 6 buses. You ask yourself, what is the population of Bamenda?
That's a good question.
That's the first question. You ask yourself, how many persons can enter that bus? It's just 6 buses they bought. And this is a fallout of what they call Bamenda Clean. I said it when they brought Bamenda Clean on a platform. and another media platform that it is still another failed. You don't solve problems like this. You start by banning bike riders. It means somebody who was feeding his family from the bike has gone jobless. Like Mr. Mofo puts it, that man can become more of a criminal because he has no source of income again. The next thing is that separatist leaders mount pressure on taxi drivers to follow the strike. And this is a consequence. You buy 6 what we call shuttle. Like you said in the days of the University of where some of us were there by then. The shuttle, I want to remember that when you came in the morning, for instance, there at a 7 a.m. class, you needed to register. Before the line you take at times, you even end up going to campus around 7:30. So a majority of students by then did not use the shuttle. This is not the way out of the crisis.
Yeah, but the shuttle is still the only means to enter the university now.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying, Mr. Leo, that we cannot, the way out of the Anglophone, we cannot be solving it region, division, subdivisions. This shuttle that are using in Bamenda, what is the shuttle they're using in Kamer, in Investiture, in Ako? Because we should be clear and say that movement is not as it used to be. The few daring Cameroonians who have the courage, like taxi drivers and Okada riders, who think they can break the odds, are still doing. But now, what is the which shuttle do we have in other areas? I just believe that, Mr. Leo, that the city mayor has done his own best, but the way out of the crisis in the northwest and the southwest should not be regional, it should not be subdivisional, it should not be divisional, it should be global. Okay. If they are buying shuttles, let there be shuttles for all areas. But, notwithstanding, let peace come by the northwest and the southwest so that people take their activities as they used to take it.
Okay, we want to thank you all who took time off to follow the program, and tomorrow we are going to be coming back to discuss about the situations of the back to school with respect to the treatment that has been reserved to the average parent in Cameroon. Can they actually meet the increasing cost in sending children to schools? Because in some of the schools here in Douala, we are made to understand that you have to register your child every year for a new school year, and with the increasing school fees and transport fares, amongst others, we're going to be looking at all of that tomorrow on Prime Hour. We want to thank you all who took time off to be part of the program. Thank you, George, Mr. Mu, for coming all the way from Boya.
Thank you, Kelly. I think coming because I'm following the IDPs to also expose them to some capacity building right there in Douala. I think the days ahead they'll be hearing more about the capacity building package we have brought to them.
Tamai Jarvis, we are glad to have you.
Thank you, Leonard. Thanks to Christian, and thanks to all those who are watching us.
And also to you, Fa Elvis Tayon.
Thank you very much. We are waiting to see those who have been incarcerated in prison to be set free by the system, by the regime in place. Thank you.
And equally to you, Prince Joel, for coming and participating.
It's always a privilege being on board, Mr. Leo. Special good evening to all GCE candidates who should be very tense, given that not long from now, maybe within the week, the GCE will come out. Special good evening to my son, Joseph Epie, watching in Boya.
Okay, we want to thank the production team, to you, Tebon Christian, who is in the studio with us behind the cameras, and to you, Desmond, and Eli, who is producing the program. We want to thank even those who are working at the broadcasting, and to you, Tambe Bryant, who is supervising our work out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.